Proceeding forward, we are delighted to present Dr. Aabaji Thatte Oration. टर्शियरी मेडिकल सेंटर का सामाजिक परिवर्तन में योगदान. Dr. Aabaji Thatte, one of the pioneers of NMO from Maharashtra, and a great personality and indeed a remarkable social worker, was a man of great honor, integrity and wisdom. For this occasion, we have our very respected speaker, Dr. Aruna Vanikar, Karnavati NMC member and All India Advisory Board member, NMO.
Ma'am, please come on the stage. Give a huge round of applause for Dr. Aruna Vanikar, ma'am. I would also request Dr. Girish Shah sir to please come on the stage to felicitate Dr. Aruna Vanikar, ma'am. जोरदार तालियों से स्वागत कीजिए डॉक्टर अरुणा वानिकर मैम का.
Namaste and pranam to all of you here, Atmiyajan. It is a special moment for me. I am humbled and it's a privilege to give the talk here for several reasons. Kolkata, Bengal is the Devbhumi for me because Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev belonged to this place. Swami Vivekananda was from here. And apart from these people, some more connections of the root of NMO. Dr. Helkevarji was the student from Kolkata Medical College. Aabaji Thatte was also a student from this college. And very few people know that Aabaji sacrificed his life for the cause of the nation by becoming personal secretary to Guruji. And so much was his devotion कि जब गुरुजी ने देह छोड़ा 1973 जून में, कुछ लोग थे साथ में, 2-3 लोग थे, आबाजी थे, चौथाई वाले थे. तब आबाजी को बोला शाम को, आबा समय हो गया है, ले आओ. और कोई कुछ समझे नहीं कि क्या ले आओ. गुरुजी तो रामकृष्ण मिशन के स्वामी विवेकानंद जी के गुरु बंधु थे, अखंडानंद जी उनके शिष्य थे. तो ये बहुत कम लोगों को पता था कि ये है. और वो उन्होंने अपना कमंडलू जो उनके गुरु ने दिया था वो एक तरफ रख दिया था, क्योंकि उन्होंने बोला था कि अब पूरी ज़िंदगी राष्ट्र को समर्पित है और कुछ नहीं सोचोगे. तो वो कमंडलू एक तरफ रख दिया था, वो आबाजी को पता था. अंत का समय आया तो गुरुजी ने कमंडलू एक तरफ रखा, आबाजी ने वो ला के दिया, दे छोड़ा. तो ये था आबाजी का कमिटमेंट टू द नेशनल कॉज और वो गुरुजी के लिए. बचपन से मेरा सौभाग्य ये रहा कि गुरुजी आते रहते थे घर पे और आबाजी भी आते रहते थे. मैं छोटी सी बच्ची थी, कभी पता भी नहीं था कि आज आबाजी के नाम का ऑरेशन मुझे मिलेगा. तो इसलिए ये मेरे लिए बहुत ही स्पेशल चीज़ है. तो इसलिए मैंने ये टॉपिक लिया क्योंकि आबाजी ने तो अपनी ज़िंदगी समर्पित की, हमने तो कुछ भी नहीं किया है, जो भी थोड़ा बहुत किया है. So I thought, let me introduce the topic of walking the trail of medical education and research for the services of mankind. What was my experience? करीबन 35-40 साल में जो थोड़ा बहुत सीखा, मैंने सोचा आप सबसे शेयर करूँ, and especially for the young students here, that there is a lot you can achieve. अगर ये कहानी करनी है देश के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं, तो इट कैन नॉट बी सेपरेट फ्रॉम माय ओन इंस्टीट्यूट, द इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ किडनी डिजीज एंड रिसर्च सेंटर, जहाँ से मेरी ये यात्रा शुरू हुई. IKD was born in 1981 अक्टूबर. उसके बाद 86 में गवर्नमेंट ने उसको ऑटोनॉमी दी. देन ऑफ कोर्स वी मूव टू द न्यू प्रीमाइसेस विद 250 बेड्स, एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स In 1997, Institute of Transplantation Sciences was born, expanded to 400 beds. Then it was named after its founder, Dr. Trivedi. And उनके बारे में मैं 2-3 लाइन बाद में बात करती हूँ. And then looking to the research and inputs in service of humanity, we were granted permanent income tax exemption free 35 और आज भी 125% exemption मिलता है from the income tax for whoever gives donations to the institute. And then when Modi ji was the chief minister, he said it's time we should become university. So it was his dream, and finally we were upgraded to the university status, and eventually I had that, what can I say, the not opportunity, but it was a responsibility given to me to be the Vice Chancellor before I was picked up from there and put in Delhi. So when we talk of this history, this is for the youngsters कि जिंदगी को सेवा के लिए कैसे समर्पित कर सकते हैं. The founder of IKD, Dr. Trivedi, was the director of transplantation services at McMaster, Canada, which is the world-class university, and he is the person who gave the program of hope, that is organ sharing, Hamilton organ program, जो आज दुनिया बात कर रही है, that was actually started by Dr. Trivedi in Canada. And those were the days when he was told by the people here कि हमारे देश में क्या मरीजों की कमी है, तो सिर्फ पैसा ही जिंदगी का एम है, you should leave everything. His father was also a Gandhian, so he burned the bridges, passport, वीसा सब खत्म कर दिया कि citizenship की बिना उनकी कभी इच्छा ही नहीं होनी चाहिए वापस जाने की. So he burned the bridges of the Western world and came to India. Only thing is the greatness of his supporters, his friends in Canada and USA, they knew that it's going to be tough in India. So they stated that, they used to call him Trev. Trev, anytime you want to come back, the seat of or the chair of transplantation directorship will always be open for all your life. And they were the ones who committed and helped us develop transplantation services, transplantation education in country. And that is why the first transplantation in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, was done on 17 September 1979 from a sister to the recipient. And of course this was started in the small room in BJ Medical College, which gradually then grew up. Now when transplantation comes, it is not just putting or removing an organ, surgical removal of organ and putting it in. Before doing that, the immunological testing has to be done. So without developing a good lab, transplantation can never be started. And so it was his friend Dr. John Dossiter who ultimately got the highest honor of Canada. And he and his team were helping us out by staying here for years together and developing. And Susan said, man, this lady, that time she was a technician, she stayed in Ahmedabad for 1 year and roamed about on this bicycle in the streets of Ahmedabad, bought small things and developed a lab. This is how she trained. Today, of course, she is the director of transplantation lab at Boston, Mass General. So this is how people have helped. And this is the record of the first transplantation. The deceased donor, actually cadaver is a word which should not be used because cadaver is less, less respectful, and it means it's dead. So it should be called as deceased donor, which the first time was done in 1987 in Ahmedabad. And my journey started, I was again picked up by Dr. Trivedi at that time. And 92, I left BJ Medical College and joined the institute as a tutor. And of course, I started everything. My training was not just clinical in the lab, but in the lab, looking to the microscope and lab work. But I also regularly was one of the main persons even in the clinical rounds and everything. In our institute, we don't have a segregation of clinical and non-clinical people. We also join the rounds, as you can see here, and make important decisions at every step. And the most crucial thing is we are fond of quoting Lee Iacocca, that at the end, all the business operations can be reduced to 3 words: the people, product and profits. People come first. Unless you have a good team, you cannot do much with the other 2. And this is actually this is the story of Chrysler, which was making a loss and converted into a profit-making company by Lee Iacocca, the founder. So this is his statement. And this is how we developed. And the rounds, as you can see, all of us actively involved in patient decision. Now, when you have to do the kidney diseases, that time in 80s, people hardly knew anything about kidney diseases. And one of the strongest support for diagnosis in nephrology is pathology. As I always like to tell everyone, that nephrology is lame without pathology and pathology is blind without nephrology. A person, especially the kidney pathologist, they have to know nephrology as good as that of a nephrologist. Without that, we cannot become a good nephropathologist. And of course, then gradually in 2003, I became the first renal pathologist of the country to support a good renal and transplant pathologist so that we can make the diseases and diagnosis of kidney disease and further development into transplantation. And this is the journey how we started. We never had funds. It all started in a small room, as you can see here. The patient load is always like this. And we have to see to it that they get the proper place to sit, place to get the testing done, how to tackle the problems, and several problems were occurring. For example, 24 hours urine sample. It's very crucial to decide the nephrotic syndrome, and in children to get that, it's a very difficult thing. So how to convince, how to get the proper collection. Second thing is just looking to the red blood cells in the urine. It's so crucial that urine is a good histology for anyone. So looking to a good urine microscopy, you can make out whether it's a glomerular disease, that means is it the domain of the nephrologist or the urologist. So that all we developed gradually and all in a limited way. And the second thing is transplantations we were doing day in and day out, but patients were lost, sometimes the grafts were lost on the table. And this was not understood why. So this is how when we developed the testing and doing not only PT, APTT, but protein C, protein S, etc. are important. So we made it compulsory, mandatory profile to have all these tests done so that the graft is not lost on the table. The other challenge is patients, as you can see, since we were doing 1 to 2 transplants every day, we had to give the reports swiftly and manage them. So how to do that? And initially, as I stated, we never had any funds. We collected everything piece by piece and developed it. So this is our journey, how we started from slowly from one room and gradually developed. And one of the crucial things is level of cyclosporin, C0, C2. Now what is important is it truly the right quantity measured? Is it the right value? So this, even our own senior professors would himself do it, like Professor Sani, he would himself test it out. Second thing is labs. People very casually say कि pathologist को कुछ आता नहीं है या lab का report error है, but only a lab person would know how much painstaking it is. Creatinine of 0.2 also will make a difference, and we have to convince the nephrologist that it's not the lab error, because just little rise in serum creatinine, you could be either it is because of the rejection, it could be because of drug toxicity. So all that we were deciding, and further depending on that, the management of the patient occurs and the graft. So this is the little data that we have. It was a painstaking effort, as you can see. The first few years, from 84 we started the journey until 2015 we did close to 4,600 renal transplants, and that's a split up the live disease donor, that is a cadaveric, and non-heart beating, KPDs, ABO incompatibles. So the journey for the first few years, which could achieve to little more than 4,500, in the next 5 years, because the team was built up till 2020, we had finished more than 6,000 transplants. And even today we do about, in the institute they do 2 or 3 transplants, kidney plus with liver and stem cells and others. And out of these more than 4,500 transplants, more than 3,500 are with stem cells under a special protocol where patients require minimal or no immunosuppression, and they are living a normal life even as of today. This was of course with our own research. We never had to depend upon the others. We did get support, but this was gradually developed by us for the sake of humanity, that we should give a good quality of life to the patients. And believe me, patients have to be convinced, the society has to be convinced that the doctor has a genuine interest in the life of the patient, a genuine interest in treating patients. So our disease donors, cadavers came all from the lowest strata of the society. दो समय का खाना नहीं मिलता था, ऐसे परिवार के लोगों ने बोला है, डॉक्टर साहब बोल रहे हैं ऑर्गन दे दो, एक्सीडेंट हुआ हाईवे पे, द पेशेंट इज ऑन वेंटिलेटर, माँ बोलेगी कि नहीं, IKD के डॉक्टर त्रिवेदी साहब बोल रहे हैं, सब दे दो. And this is how we used to have sometimes 2 or 3 cadaver donors a day. Even today we get them. That is because the society should be convinced that you are committed for the welfare of the society, for the welfare of the patients. Rest all comes. We never had money. Always there was a crunch, but we could give the services because this was commitment. And now with the blood bank and liver transplant, when the first liver was done, the whole night we tapped, it was O negative patient. We collected 300 units of blood from one side. Collecting O negative 300 units, only people from the blood bank will understand what a difficult task it is. But that was the kind of support we had from the society. They all kept on coming. We kept on bleeding the donors, testing, and one side the surgeons were doing the transplant, and today also he is well. And for sake of blood donation, the institute chairman, who was the ACS, he himself would come regularly and donate. Like we used to celebrate the 31st August as the birthday of our founder. And Sri Rao, who was the secretary, he is the one who has changed the scenery of Surat. So when taking history, I would say, Mr. Rao, have you donated blood? Aruna ji, I have not donated blood. ले लो, फिर blood ले लेंगे, फिर बोलेंगे I'm sorry, I lied to you. मैंने पिछले महीने blood दिया था, but I did not want to miss the occasion of blood donation on this special day. So this was a kind of commitment even from the bureaucracy for our institute. And this comes when the whole team is dedicated. And then of course with that, there are several other things. When the protocol, stem cell protocol came, removal of the antibodies. So we developed step by step all this, and how we developed these are just the photographs. And as you can see, this was in a place, the Janmabhoomi of our director. We went there for blood donation drive. 2,000 donors came. We had to reject 800 donors क्योंकि 1200 से ज़्यादा हम blood collect नहीं कर पा रहे हैं उस एक ही दिन में. So this is the kind of commitment we get. Only thing is, as I say, the society has to get a feel of it, and you get the donors. And till the last few years, we used to have this regular input. We never had the crunch for any of these things because of the committed team. So this is how it went on. Then came the further journey. The transplant was done. I was not fully trained, so we had. Every year we used to get all the high level, what can we say, the academicians from the transplantation field, pathology, etc., visiting us every time. So this was my mentor, Dr. John Crossan, who had come that time in 1996. He took a promise from Dr. Trivedi that unless he sends Aruna to his team, to his lab in Minnesota, he was not going to leave that office. So that is how I went to Minnesota, got trained. It was a different story that when I went, as I was taken in as a student, but the first day itself they found that I was competent enough, so I became the reporting pathologist from the day one. But that was a time I had never seen an electron microscope, and we never thought that we'll be able to purchase an electron microscope. But the department chair, Dr. Anderson, some of the pathologists would know the Anderson textbooks are there. He himself would be sitting with me and training me on the electron microscope. And of course then gradually we trained the other people. And this is how we then gradually developed, and you will be surprised that my first teacher in renal pathology was a nephrologist, my guru Dr. Trivedi. After that, of course, the others came, and Dr. Crossan, my teacher, trained me into the various aspects. And that is the team at Minneapolis. After that, an invitation came from Israel for bone marrow transplant. I was not keen, but they said, why don't you come and learn bone marrow transplant? So that was the time in 2003 that I learned cord blood banking and bone marrow transplantation, and then realized that cord blood is not the best way. We got rid of it. And in fact, I was the one to start embryonic transplant, and I was the one to stop it because it has a lot of other problems, should not be done. And, but of course, this opened up our eyes of learning about the blood bank, various aspects about immunohematology. And then, of course, Ralph Zinkernagel, who received his Nobel in 1997, he visited us and he wanted to give some present to me. So I said, I don't have, what is it he can? So he decided to give the flow cytometer. So the way which this why I'm narrating to the young students is there's a lot to learn from the Western world. They just didn't send away the fact scan, but he took me personally with him to his lab in Zurich, trained me personally in fact scan for 15 days, and after that I came back with the flow cytometer, which was free of cost, which worked for many years. And of course now it was my team who is trained and they are doing this work. And a few years later also we did keep on meeting once in a while with Rolf and his wife. And this is the kind of interaction. And so of course we must do something for our country, but there are of course noble people outside who also support us and give a lot of inputs for the country. Then of course came the time we were doing a lot of transplants, but patients were being lost to the rejections. We did a lot of world records, like 10 organs, 10 transplants in a day, lots of kidney transplants, and then there were a lot of talks about us in the press all over the world. As you can see, the laparoscopic robotic, in fact the vaginal transplantation was also done, so all these records are there. So a lot of work and put in. It was the whole team which was doing all this work. And some data, then the liver transplant was not available in India, in Gujarat those days. And patients with liver failure had to go either out, if they were very well to do, they would have to go to the foreign countries or they would come to Delhi. So our own surgeon, who was a urologic surgeon, he was trained into liver by, again, another noble act by the chairman of Nobel Assembly from Karolinska. He took our team, trained them, and that's how they're able to do the liver transplants. And this is some of the data for the last, of course this is not an updated data, this is till 2015. So now of course I believe it is much more. It could be, they do about 1 to 3 livers every week. It's a huge number. And again, the story which about the first liver transplant, O negative blood, this is the person who was transplanted, the first transplant recipient, liver transplant recipient. Now transplantation of course we were doing, but we were losing grafts to the rejection. So what was the way out? This was the time when my mentor Dr. Trivedi kept on coaxing, Aruna, you must do something, do some research about stem cell. What is it that you are doing? So we went to Korea, to Woo-Suk Hwang, who was, again this is another interesting story, that the Western world, if they find that people are ahead of them, they meet a fatal end. That is Woo-Suk Hwang. He was the one who was the first creator of Snoopy, the Seoul National University, the first model of dog whom he had created in the lab. The Western world, Americans forced his own people to give quotes against him. They were taken away, and the same team is now working in Pittsburgh and in Chicago, and ultimately the hero of one time became a problem for the whole country, and he committed suicide a few years later. But we learned our techniques of stem cells from his lab, and they gave us all the details, and in minimal amount we could, the stem cell lab was created, and of course Narendra Modi ji came to inaugurate that lab. And in his busy schedule, he used to come in the evening. He came at 11 o'clock. Everybody was sitting at night till late at night. And so the stem cell lab was inaugurated by Narendra Bhai at 11 o'clock at night. But that is how the lab worked. And this is of course the team which supported. Then of course the steps how to help now. So we created all the different kinds of stem cells, the hematopoietic, adipose tissue derived stem cells. I have trained the peripheral blood stem cells. So this is the team which I have trained, and this is how it is being done in the lab. That is of course collection of bone marrow, how it is taken, treated in the lab, and the adipose derived stem cells, the whole procedure of doing it. And the major advantage of these stem cells, it's a patented technique by me, the hematopoietic and the adipose-derived mesenchymal stem cells. Those in the field of transplant would know that patients have to be on lifelong immunosuppression just to keep that organ alive. And with the stem cells, what I could achieve is, you can see here, the expected survival in the Western world. 5-year survival is anywhere from 42 to 54%, and 10 years is from 30 to 56, depending upon the race. If it is Negroes, it is 34, and whites, it will be 56. As against that, with our stem cells, now of course this is the latest publication which I did 2 years back. They have finished 20 years, and the survival is about 88% with minimal or no immunosuppression. And we have some more than 3,000 patients who have got this achievement, which is the only thing in the whole world. Nobody has been able to do it. And patients are living a normal life with just 1 tablet of Azuran or half a tablet of MMF with this or no drugs. And they will be roaming around anywhere in the streets. So this is what the stem cell research could give to our patients, and believe me, this is the only center in the whole world who have achieved it. Then, and the way of monitoring again, now for monitoring we got the help from Paul Terasaki, who is the inventor of tissue typing. So Paul and his team used to stay with us for the whole year. And should I try to finish early? Okay. So this is how I monitor, and again this is the only unique way we can monitor a patient. For example, how many days since transplantation, is this a biopsy, what are the antibodies, will they cause harm or not. So this was again a unique way which we developed together with Paul and the team. And we could measure them, and again this is the only unique thing done by us. Nowhere else in the world has this been done. Other success story was creating insulin making stem cells, with which we started with type 1, but we have treated type 1, 1.5, 2, 3, all the patients, and the response is really good. It is, of course, we couldn't completely eradicate diabetes, but the insulin requirement would come down from say 120 units to 30 units a day. Some patients would require just 10 units, and this is just with single infusion, which was sustained for 7 to 8 years. So after, of course, I came to Delhi, this was I stopped. But so this is an achievement we can do with stem cells. So this is another thing, insulin making stem cells. And for this, of course, again I got the patent which I gave away to the institute, and Modi ji was happy and came, and I believe this was in the NMO conference when 2008 in Ahmedabad in our institute, when he came and gave this appreciation to me. And another achievement is neuronal stem cells. As you all are aware, once a patient has paraplegia, he is lifelong gone. Everything below would be gone. Bladder, bowel, movement, everything is gone. So we have generated neuronal stem cells also, which have worked in cerebral palsy and several other diseases. And this is the protocol how it works. And we published this paper for about 10 patients, how with all these problems, how it worked, and the response. Fairly good response. As you can see, it was safe. They regained bladder bowel movement. All of them had a recovery from bladder bowel loss. There was a variable improvement, and I'll show you how it works. This was a patient who had a fall from a tree, and for 16 years he was totally paraplegic, had nothing below. No sensations below L4-S5 and no movements. This is immediately post-transplant. there was some movement achieved. This is immediately after that, and I will just show you to save the time. After 6 months, you can see this one. So this is what stem cells can do. And these patients, believe me, they get a normal life since now, of course, it's on the walker. We have treated such about 150 patients. And those who have to be dependent upon people, now they are on their own. So they don't require any support, at least they're independent, bladder bowel movement coming back, they are able to move about. That itself is a major sign of satisfaction for the family, for the patients, they are more than happy. And another story is the cardiomyocytes. In fact, my own family member, she was to die because of cardiomyopathy. Bombay, they live in Bombay, everybody had given up hopes. And then one day they called me up that, why don't you try making cardiomyocytes? So I made them and infused them. And that was the change, the thickness increased, ejection fraction improved to 40%. And she is back today. She's, of course, those were the days when she was not able to walk or talk, would be in the bed. Now she's roaming around all over the world. अब मेरी बुआ है बोलती है कि उसका बोलना और घूमना बंद कर दो, बहुत ज़्यादा हो रहा है. So this is what was the achievement, giving a normal life to her. This was, of course, in 2009. काफी साल हो गए. Now she's on her own. So after that, of course, we got the new premises and developed the lab. Step by step it is. Now this is the current position. So this is what we could achieve in the institute. And after that, of course, I was given the D.Litt at SNDT, and then I was the University of Minnesota. The people who invented pancreas transplant, they called me to deliver a lecture and learn from me how to do this tolerance. So this is my teacher at the U of M. Was so happy to see my progress. So this is at that time. And now simply keeping it yourself doesn't work. So this is some of my students. I was the first one to start the postdoctorate certificate course in the country, and we tried to disseminate this all across the country. And I have some of these students who have been trained, and they are in various parts of the country who are able to deliver services in renal pathology in both education and training. And now, of course, it's the next generation, so the show is going on. And this is some of the data how we had done till 2019, all the different services and the team. So this is gradual evolution for the services of the mankind. Then the new challenge of NMC. My colleagues here are here, so all of us were picked up and suddenly we gathered together to become a family ourselves in NMC, where many of you have visited us in Delhi. So the challenges that were given to us. So what were the major challenges? One was equitable distribution of colleges. Some states and union territories were clustered with too many colleges, and there are some areas where there are no colleges. Second thing is the fee structure. Somewhere it is almost 1,000 rupees and somewhere it is in crores. So we had that as a challenge. Third was the training. Many people, in fact, many of the private colleges, they are opening up, but there is no training because there are no patients available. There are no teachers available. So these are the problems which we are tackling even as of today. And the whole day we are talking about attitude, ethics, compassion, how should we train. So this is our main agenda, how to give the best of education, how to inculcate sympathy and responsibility and tell the students to be responsive and caring for the patients. So these are the various steps that we have taken, how to handle the COVID pandemic. So the few things that we added up was, the first challenge which I took up was foreign medical graduates. Some of you may be aware that these people, they take the degrees without even going there. And even today we are facing those problems. So we of course published this, that people should not go abroad, we should be trained here itself. Why should not give the training to our students? And the issue was giving good education, giving at a reasonable rate. So both these the government have addressed, and we are trying to dissuade the students from going abroad. And because their output is not really good. And even today the show is going on, but we hope that we will be able to achieve this control and this success. And the Honorable Minister was also very keen and positive, and he supported us, and we used to have regular meetings with the different groups. Some of you have joined us in these meetings. The other thing was, we have been hearing about stress to the students in medical education. So we introduced Charak Shapat to raise our own moral. We introduced yoga, so to yoga, and then gradually they can even go for meditation. This will alleviate their stress, this will teach them how to be compassionate, how to develop equanimity, at least to have some control in their own outlook. And the most important thing was family adoption. The aim of giving family adoption was multi-purpose. One was rural outreach. NMO is doing a wonderful job of arranging medical camps. Seva Basti mein saal mein ek baar jate hain. But with this family adoption, what we are insisting is we should have 5 families, every student, so that just learning in the hospital on the skills lab would not be there. They would actually be interacting with the families. They would actually take the responsibility of the family by being a mentor to the young children of the family, sharing the responsibilities, learning themselves how to tackle. And so when they come out, they become good health leaders. Along with this tree plantation, herbal medicines, the medicinal plant, all this has been introduced into the family adoption program. The other thing is, we just heard Honorable Minister, we don't have the Indian data. We say that 120/80 is the blood pressure, but this is not the Indian blood pressure. This is what the Western world has told us. So if this family adoption program is done sincerely, every state, if the data is collected, then in fact, so much of material will come out. The community medicine departments of the colleges, state-wise, they can collect together and get out their own data. Because once every year they will be having the measurements of blood pressure, hemoglobin, blood sugar. So this will give us a data of what are the normal parameters or the basic things of our population. And we can come out, and this will also make them interested, and we can have our own data publication for several levels, including the students. So this is the main aim, and multi-purpose. So if it is done, this will be taking care of several things. And we personally checked out in a few colleges, and this is where me and Regenerative visited, and the families and the students were also very happy. In fact, in one of the families, the student came with us. This was somewhere in Telangana. So the boy, I just asked him, "Ki kya problem hai?" I said, "My dadi has this. मेरी दादी को heart का problem है. भाभी ने delivery की है. बच्चा 3 महीने का होगा. उसको सारे we have to give all the vaccination programs." So we sat for 15 minutes, and when we were leaving, the house lady who held his hand, "अरे मेहमानों को जाने दो, तुम बैठो हमारे साथ." So this is the aim for us to develop the ideal Indian graduate, which we are achieving through this. So this is the example, and just a few pictures of our visit to these various places in the country. And we also are regularly meeting on the videos with all the stakeholders, that is the deans, medical education units, vice chancellors, the directors of medical educations, the regional centers, nodal centers, and further up we have added now this year. We have made the basic course in medical education and the advanced course in medical education. We are trying to make it more simple and easy to become acceptable. Other idea we are toying, we are discussing with all these teams is education in bilingual languages. Because all over the world, English-speaking countries are less. French, German, Arabic, Hebrew, all these people, Japanese, they teach in their own language. Believe me, they are Nobel laureates, but they don't know even 2 lines in English. But they are still one of the best doctors or researchers in the world. So the idea was, why don't we try that in our country? So we are discussing this out. Initially there was of course lot of resistance, just like Swami Vivekananda says that for any new idea there will be first be opposition, ridicule, then there will be resistance, and then there will be gradual acceptance. So I believe the same will happen for education in bilingual languages, because still people are not ready and to accept that idea. Because when NEET can be conducted in 13 languages, gradually we can introduce education in different languages. Technical words will remain the same, but they can interpret and they can explain to the teachers in the local languages, so this time will be saved and this will help out. So, in fact, all of you know Madhya Pradesh has already come out with the textbooks in Hindi. Similarly, other states are also coming up with the languages. In fact, in Maharashtra, they have the PG course in pharmacy, they have started in Marathi. So gradually, of course, it will take time, but this will pick up slowly. And this is a thought for all of us, how to improve. So this is only so that we become better and better. And the last challenge which we took up was, you must be aware that from many Hindus had to flee from Pakistan, they came to India. शरणार्थी के रूप में आए थे, पर उनको डॉक्टर का स्टेटस नहीं मिल रहा था. So with some of the friends who were sitting in the audience, we could make the examination paper, we conducted exams. Eventually all of them passed and we gave them away the certificates. So now they have regained their status of doctors in India, so they can practice as doctors in India. नहीं तो अभी वो लोग सब्जी बेच रहे हैं, कहीं कुछ कर रहे हैं. So we are trying to see that we have to stop the Kashmir file story and do whatever we can. तो ये है, कुछ प्रयास चल रहे हैं, हमसे जो भी कुछ हो सकता है कर रहे हैं. So at the end I would say that it is ruinous to do what is not worth doing, and it is also ruinous to not to do what is worth doing. So with this I end here, and I am sure we are going to take us, our nation, to Param Vaibhavam Netu Mehta Swarashram Samartha Bhavatva Shishati Bhushan. इसी के साथ मैं मेरा निवेदन समाप्त करती हूँ. मुझे ये मौका दिया इसके लिए बहुत बहुत